Why do we play sad games? As the medium has grown over the decades, so has the ability to tell compelling and sophisticated stories. The goal of these developers is not to make players cry or feel sad, but for the player to connect personally with the world and characters they have created. Sadness might be the ultimate avenue of empathy, as every person holds tightly to the trauma that caused them sadness in their lives. As a species, we carry burdens that we seemingly can't put down, so we often lean on each other, seeking others who share a similar burden. This is a list of games that pushed the complexity of the medium and made me feel something. Some of the entries on this list are going to be surprising, games that I didn't expect to affect me, while others are going to be fairly obvious. Obviously, this list contains spoilers for all of these games.
Dear Esther, I sometimes feel as if I've given birth to this island. Somewhere between the longitude and latitude, a split opened up, and it beached remotely here. No matter how hard I correlate, it remains a singularity, an alpha point in my life that refuses all hypothesis. I return each time leaving fresh markers that I hope, in the full glare of my hopelessness, will have blossomed into fresh insight in the interim.
Dear Esther is a confusing game, if you can call it a game at all. You find yourself on a deserted and dilapidated island, and as you explore, letter fragments are read to you. These letters are written by the grieving husband of Esther. There are other characters listed in these letters, but as you dive deeper and deeper into the island, the letters become more distorted and names begin to lose their meaning. The player has no interaction with the world at all, it's just an observer and a listener. There are lots of secrets to find, and each playthrough can contain different letter fragments, which means you cannot experience the whole of the island in a single go. The feeling of isolation, sadness, and the haunting nature of the experience makes it quite surreal to walk through. The themes of trauma are prevalent in Owlboy. Many of the characters are driven by trauma of their past and the dire choices presented to them in the present. Owlboy is another beautiful game that uses its presentation to hide its often oppressive themes of loneliness and trauma. But it does not take long into the experience to realize that there's a great sadness about this world that's not easily conquered. Owlboy is just a solid game in general, and if you missed out on it for some reason, you should give it a go.
Here, too, everyone in this world thought that they were safe. Not just the people, but the dog waiting for his owner. The cat curled up in her nook. So much life. Trees and flowers. There's no deeper sadness than discovering all that you knew is gone. The grief in this place is too much to fathom.
Aqua's short, dark journey through the Land of Darkness is unironically one of the darkest and most lonely experiences in Kingdom Hearts. Set on the backdrop of the ruins of the destroyed world she visited previously, the desolation of the familiar combined with the impressive darkness overwhelms her. It's not a long game and contains a few rays of hope, but I was surprised how the realization of the fates of these worlds came together to paint a bleak path narrowly avoided by the events of Kingdom Hearts.
When the scale of it all overwhelms me, this is what I tell myself. We can calculate the age of the Earth, the size of the universe, the future of the stars. Sure, we are minuscule, momentary flashes of thought on a grain of sand drifting through the cosmos. But our minds can recreate the past and predict the future. On, say, Friday, 1,000,000 years from now, we'll all be dead. But right now, we know what the night sky will look like on that day. And so, in a way, we're not entirely bound by time. Knowledge is a kind of freedom.
There is always a sadness inherent to any post-apocalyptic fiction. In many of them, the hope of humanity falls on the survivors, but in the Talos Principle, there are no survivors. The hope of humanity falls on the shoulders of artificial beings. Exploring what it really means to be human and walking through the ruins of great societies of the past as you continue to collect what is needed to ascend the tower is haunting, and the isolation only occasionally is broken. When it is, you are never sure who around you is friend or foe. Discovering recordings and remnants of the past society all paint a bleak picture of humanity's last days, but also a hopefulness and an acceptance of fate and love between fellow man is peeked through the cracks. It's a sad game, but it's not the overwhelming point of the narrative. But I can't help but think about humanity's last days when I play it.
Initiate program. Generations of your kind have come and gone since those words. The garden has changed many times. But I remember. I remain. Only within me can you find immortality.
But didn't know.
Yeah, you knew this game was going to be on here, and good company with the many other Metroidvanias on this list. It touches on a lot of the themes that have already been mentioned. It is a truly bleak and apocalyptic landscape, while also somehow being simultaneously really beautiful. The tragedy of the kingdom destroyed by the hubris of its gods is a sorrowful tale, as the children of these beings must atone for the sins of their parents, who left them with a broken world. Mirroring the themes of Majora's Mask and the lifting of other sorrows leading to more sorrow for our hero, the journey to ease this world's pain leads to the hero's destruction. Rhyme is built around the stages of grief, and as such, by its nature, is a sad game. Each area escalates the theme, and something is always being lost or on the verge of being lost. The game's art provides enough light and color to keep the player from plunging into despair, but by the end, it is easy to find yourself breaking into tears over the narrative. Even more than being about grief, the game is most about acceptance of our own mortality, and how we cannot cling to our life forever, and often are forced to accept not just the fate of others, but our own fates as well. We have a saying in my household, "Oh no, not the owl game." It's such a good game, but in the very first entry, I could not make it out of the opening cutscene without crying. I mean, really crying. Ori is a masterful series of Metroidvanias that I hope there will be more of, but even if they don't make more of these gems of games, I often come back and replay it, but sometimes I do skip the opening cutscenes. These games tick that post-apocalyptic sadness I mentioned earlier, but in this case, the sadness comes from the desperation of Aloy to not only survive, but to retrieve what was taken from humanity by the hubris of, essentially, one man. The loneliness she feels as someone who is so different from those around her but asked to lead a world to a brighter dawn. Her struggle with her identity and a loss of parentage, and the legacy that has been thrust upon her, is often a moving thread on the backdrop of this ruined world she inhabits. It's a haunting reminder that all we hold as essential and dear is no more than a series of poor decisions away from being lost.
I better find those eggs.
I've mentioned it before that I do not love the 3-day mechanic of this game, but I do absolutely love its world and story. Its themes of loss and easing others' pain resonate, and are especially poignant with the realization of the fate of this link. How again, the easing of others' pain leads to the suffering of the hero. How often, to save others, we are forced to forsake ourselves. We often contextualize this loss in one great sacrifice, but often it's not like that. For many, the burden of others lingers on the ones who lift them, and Majora's Mask reminds us of the burden of fate and kindness that often come with doing the right thing. This game exudes loneliness, and it's even more of a feat considering the time it came out and the hardware it was on. At the time, there was nothing else like it, and it's easy to forget how incredible that feeling was the first time when so many games have emulated it since. This is the oldest game on this list, and was way ahead of its time, presenting a mood and deeper themes to its players, largely subtextually. There's a reason why many of the games on this list are Metroidvanias. It's because that experience of loneliness and dread is cemented into the DNA of the Metroid franchise, and to emulate its design often results in the emulation of its mood. And that's the list. Thanks again for watching, and let me know what your list is in the comments. As always, have a great day.